A very warm welcome to everyone at Jairangam Festival. Thank you, audience, for joining us today. And I would like to take this moment to congratulate Team Jairangam, Deepak Gera ji, Hema ji, for curating such a beautiful festival. Thank you for inviting me to curate the international webinar series for the festival. We've been able to have artists from all over the world and share topics concerning arts and artists over a series of 5 webinars. Today, as much as I'm happy to start this series, I'm also full of a lot of sorrow as we've had two very sad news since yesterday. Manglesh Dabralji left us yesterday, and today morning, the shocking news was that our very own dear Astad Debuji passed away. Astadji was a very dear friend, a beautiful artist, and even more beautiful soul. I have known him for many, many years. I have been to attend his performances, which were full of soulful creations and renditions. And he has been there to watch so many of my plays, and he was always a very special audience. Astad Debu was an Indian contemporary dancer and choreographer who employed his training in Indian classical dance forms of Kathak as well as Kathakali to create a unique fusion dance form. He was considered a pioneer of modern dance in India and conferred the Sahitya Academy Award in 1995 and the Padma Shri in 2007. I would like the team to share a clipping of Astad Debuji.
मैम आपका माइक म्यूट है.
I would like to share a few words about Manglesh Dabralji. Mangleshji was an Indian poet who wrote in Hindi. He was an editor of many eminent publications, and he himself published 5 collections of poetry, which have been translated to many languages. He was conferred the prestigious Sahitya Academy Award in 2000. I'll be reading a poem from his collection, and this is from his book that I received from Bhai Baldeep ji in the morning. Thank you for sharing this collection with me. एक जीवन के लिए शायद वहां थोड़ी सी नमी थी या हल्का सा कोई रंग शायद सिहरन या उम्मीद शायद वहां एक आंसू था या एक चुंबन याद रखने के लिए शायद वहां बर्फ थी या छोटा सा एक हाथ या सिर्फ छूने की कोशिश शायद अंधेरा था या एक खाली मैदान या खड़े होने भर की जगह शायद वहां एक आदमी था, अपने ही तरीके से लड़ता हुआ. Wah, Mangleshi. Your words always touched our hearts. And now I'll be quickly reading the English translation done by Arvind Krishna Mehrotra so that our audience from all over the world can enjoy it. Good for a lifetime. Perhaps there was a bit of moisture there, or a pastel shade, perhaps a shiver, perhaps hope. Perhaps there was just one teardrop there, or as a keepsake, yes, perhaps there was snow there, or a small hand, or the attempt to touch. Perhaps there was darkness there, or an open field, or standing room. Perhaps there was a man there, struggling in his own way. Thank you, Mangleshi, for these beautiful words. You will be remembered always, and Astad, you will remain dear and live in our hearts forever. Over to my panelists who've joined us from all over the world. And today we will be discussing creating curating for gender based issues. They say art washes away dust of everyday life. Pablo Picasso said that. And we who are locked in our houses, in our cities, in our countries, are looking within and trying to figure out how do we wash away this dust that has accumulated over us, over our work, over our surroundings for years. And more than that, it's also issues that have come forward during these lockdown times. I believe that domestic violence is on the rise. Women are having much more tough time than their male counterparts. They have been struggling to balance the personal and professional space. They have been struggling to get work, to curate work, to create work. The struggle for funds carries on. And yet, being a woman, I would say I would love to be a woman in every lifetime because it gives you joy of nurturing, of creating in a very special manner, of connecting with people in a manner that is extremely deep. Let's have a discussion with all the four artists who've joined us from Australia, France, UK, and India, how they have been creating, finding joy, and finding themselves within their work, and also the challenges that they have been facing while doing this work. I'll quickly take this moment to introduce all of them, and I think that I would like to introduce all of them together right in the beginning so that we can start with our discussion. Leena Kejriwal, who's a very dear friend from India, is a photographer and an installation artist. She has been an artist in residence in France under the Indo French Cultural Exchange Program. Cities with their socio-political and economic structure have been her prime interest and the subject of a large-scale photographic installation in Kolkata, Delhi, Tehran, Berlin, and Weimar. They have also been showcased in her book, Calcutta, Repossessing the City. She has been associated with several NGOs working on the issue of human trafficking and prostitution of young girls. Her artwork, Missing, takes this issue to the public through interactive artistic mediums of information dissemination like street graffiti. The stencils from this project can be seen across the country in cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Kolkata, and in the thick of the trafficking belt in Kishanganj, Bihar, and Kokrajhar, Assam. Kultali in West Bengal, to name a few. A very warm welcome, Leena, and we look forward to hearing about your whole journey. Tammy Brennan. Tammy, thank you for joining us all the way from Australia. Tammy is an agitator and artist who creates and produces contemporary cross art form works. Predominantly a writer, her work is highly collaborative and centered on making connections with people that spark exchange and interdisciplinary encounters to provoke dialogue, action, and reflection between the creative practitioner and the spectator. Tammy draws on her own lived experience of sexual violence to interrogate and engage with systematic socio-political problems. Her operatic narratives probe abuses of power, culture, and contemporary issues such as victim and survivor stereotyping, human rights violations, gender violence, conflict, and trauma. Claire Angel, a very warm welcome, Tammy, and we are looking forward to knowing about your journey from you. Claire. Claire is a very dear friend, and we go back many years. Claire Angel, she's here from France. Claire Angel is the co founder of the company Adesso et Son Père. As a director and designer, she has worked on Miroir in 2005, Vivre in 2007, La Femme Qui 2012, Gladiatrice 2018, to name a few. She's increasingly oriented towards societal themes which inspire an investigative dramaturgy, with research drawing from science, art, and vernacular sources towards an original writing of text for a poetic initiative of reality. As a stage director and at company Chagall, Saw M, her work deals with textual materials that are generally non theatrical, including novels, poetry, autofiction, correspondences, journalistic chronicle, biographies, and anthropological investigations. She ended her 2015 to 2018 cycle of creations, Copernic, on gender equality with a show, a living exhibition, and a documentary film. Claire, I've always seen you as a brave woman, a woman who expresses without any boundaries. And today, I feel honored that you joined us here, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you. Indrani Lahiri, who is joining us from UK, someone who I met recently, but seems like that we've done so much together in the past few months. And this is a lockdown relationship, a beautiful lockdown relationship that we've been able to create. Indrani Lahiri is a senior lecturer in media and communication at De Montfort University. She's also the founder of Manav Utsav Digital Festival and Children in Times of Corona. She holds an associate fellowship with the Institute of Commonwealth Studies at the University of London and is the fellow of the Royal Society of Art. Her research interests include pressing questions in contemporary media studies, digital society, socio-political concerns, political communication, public relations, media culture, media effects, media technologies, big data, post-colonialism, globalization, social developmental policies, to mention a few. She recently completed a project on migrant schooling crisis and media in Leicester as principal investigator and is currently working as co-investigator in an international interdisciplinary research project titled Mental Health Literacy in Urban and Rural Communities in India, and interdisciplinary approach using theatre methodology. And Indrani and I collaborated over Manav Utsav and Dramebazi from the Creative Arts Academy. I would also like to take this moment that the Creative Arts Academy and Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry Arts Leadership Council are collaborators with Australian High Commission to bring this webinar series to you at Jairangam Festival. So, starting my questions to Leena.
Yeah.
Leena, I have seen you work tirelessly with this challenging project of missing. And the project itself proposes, you know, challenge with a capital C just when you begin thinking about it. And you don't even, because we come from urban cities and we don't even know where to begin. But I think your connection with it or concern about it must have been so deep, and it must have been such a disturbing issue for you that you jumped into it and you have never looked back. And your missing project that you have taken online and created games and done, created these beautiful sculptures that we see, graffiti that you have created that is so visible. How challenging has it been, the whole journey for you? And how aware do you think our society is that this, almost a crime of trafficking should be eradicated, should be taken out of our social system, should be banned in all the country? And yeah, I mean, first let's talk about your journey and the challenges and your negotiation with the society.
I'm with myself in a way. It started like I'm a true artist, so it all came up from right deep within me. You're right when you said it was this deep, huge, burning desire to talk to
Yeah,
the public on the issue, which driven me and has driven me so far and continues to drive me every day. So I'm primarily a photographer, and like you said, I like to photograph cities, socio-political, economical. What makes a city? What makes a space? What makes a portrait? What makes a person sit the way he is, sitting in the city, in the space he is sitting? Why is he sitting that way? What makes him sit that way? Why is he wearing that color? Where is that? Why is that color of the wall green? Why is that color of the wall red? And the whole narrative which is going around in every image of a city, every snap, that's always excited me, and that's what of course you see in my book and the other spaces. But it's one such journey which takes me into, I'll just tell you how that spark came. I enter into Kali Ghat, which is one of the oldest red light districts of the city. We've all heard of it all our life, but when you enter in it, because a really dear friend had started an NGO in the thick of the in Kali Ghat to provide education for the children there. So I got an opportunity to go right into the thick of it, into a lane, meet with the mothers, really get really get up close with the community there, and that sort of shakes me so much, and it totally drives all my work after that. So I was doing these really complicated photographic installations, double story, huge walls, the works, galleries, shows, and but the more it was happening, it happened for literally 3 years, from 2010 to 2013. That's when I realized that I actually wanted to talk to the public. And all this time, I
and
was having this interaction with all my friends who were working in the NGOs in red lights. There was Shabari Sarkar, there's Ruchira Gupta, there is Urmi Basu. And from all my conversations and all my help, whichever I was extending towards them, I realized that the biggest issue was that the public, which is actually creating the demand for every girl to get trafficked, is so far away from the conversations on trafficking and the role they play. So I set out to do something which actually breaking it, really removing the shaft from the whole issue, which is so murky and so muddy. It's really sad. It's really bad. It shouldn't happen. Violation, abuse. But
yeah,
what is we have to learn to be able to break up the actual issue. The issue was that the demand makers are not addressing what they are doing, and they can
mm,
continue feeling bad and sad, but till they don't become responsible, it's very difficult to change anything in that space. So I wanted to create something, a language which would be, in India there is a new language every 100 kilometers. So I said my work has to be something which is public. It has to be something which traverses all language barriers. It should be something which immediately catches your attention in the true public art genre, which is, it's not an art in a public space. It has to be something more than that. And from that, I would like to share with you. I was born, I would say, of the works. These works were actually something which happened after my um, engagement with. Sorry, can you all see my screen? Can you all see my
Not
screen?
yet, not yet, not yet.
Just so I'm sorry, it's not taking full screen for some reason. These were the missing
Now it's
public.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it now.
So the missing public artworks when they were born, they were like larger than life silhouettes of girls set against the sky, like black holes into which millions of girls disappear from the face of the earth. And these are larger than life silhouettes, and they are made of iron, steel, fiberglass, and they look like as if you've cut out the sky. And beyond that
Yeah,
sky, you just see the black hole. So, and for me, it was only a black hole which could actually consume the millions of girls which were being trafficked and which were hidden, and nobody really, and their cries were so huge, and nobody could hear them. So these were kind of imageries which were flitting in my mind when I first created these artworks, and they were put up at the India Art Fair. The UK Guardian actually really gave me an amazing headline that missing looms over the India Art Fair. The artwork was one of the best artworks to view at the India Art Fair that year, and you got amazing media. But now you're talking
yeah,
a little bit about the challenge. I would like to tell you in India, the public, private, and the public art spaces are very difficult to really traverse. It's a lot of red tapeism. You must have connections. You must know the right people. And I was actually somebody sitting in my studio and working. So I
yeah,
went through the whole process of not knowing how to move ahead, because though there were multiple conversations going on, nothing was moving ahead. So what I
hmm,
did was I actually then started doing a crowdfunding campaign. In the
right,
crowdfunding campaign, what emerged was the missing silhouette then took the form of a guerrilla art,
hmm,
and we did it with along with students, collectives, anybody who wanted to join us in our conversation of ending demand, and we did the
hmm,
silhouettes across the city. So it became this huge public dialogue, a very powerful
hmm,
dialogue starting point of dialogue with the public on the issue of trafficking and who are these girls and where are they, and everybody who sees it knows what we are talking about. So even as
yeah,
they look at it, they do get that sense of total understanding and
absolutely.
the seriousness of this is the way. Actually, I'm just showing you a few of them. So that's been the journey so far for the missing, and it has taken multi disciplinary forms, I would say. We've got since then we've moved to games, we've moved to murals, we've moved to
Yeah,
many more formats. But I thought that would be a good introduction to say how it started, why it started, and the
yeah,
kind of space it traversed, and all because of the need. No, and every time I got a roadblock, I kind of turned and I said, okay, let
hmm.
me try something else.
I think that's the way to go because the pictures that you showed, and we've all been seeing them physically. It is a very powerful medium that you chose to address or, talk to the people and talk to the masses, in the streets, in the small streets, crowded places. Yeah. So I'll move on to Claire and ask her to share a bit about her work. Claire, I have seen you myself in Montpellier performing, and I also saw you in the green room, which was not my, sweet friend sitting over there, but in fact, it was a brave woman who was sitting half naked, and she said hello in a way that said, "Oh my God, I would like to reach that state of courage." It wasn't about a half naked body as much as the stance, the inner Claire, who was already a character sitting in the green room that I saw, and that will stay as a very powerful image in my mind. Your work as a performer has always revolved around gender issues. Your projects line cycle of creation, Copernic, on gender equality with a show, a living exhibition. and a documentary films addresses gender fluidity. And it's a lot of work. I would like to tell the audience that Claire's link, and we would try to put everyone else's links also, will be available on the Facebook. So kindly take few moments or during your time when you want to reflect and see these works, click on those links and you'll be able to see the whole body of work, which we may not be able to share, in a short session like this. So, what has been your point of departure to curate such dogmatic projects? And how do you see? I'll come to the second question later. But, what were the points of departure? What were your inspiration? What is that moment? Or was it just being a woman? It came naturally to you to talk about these issues right from the beginning.
Thanks for inviting me, Raman. I'm very happy to be here. First thing is the point of departure is that I read a book that maybe you have read, which is The Woman Who Walked Into Doors by Roddy Doyle. And at this time, we had figures coming out on the radio of domestic violence issues and the number of deaths in France, and everything seemed to converge on that topic at this moment, very particular moment in my life. And in personal life, I was in the middle of something which was quite dramatic, but it was not violence in itself, but it was quite dramatic. And something hit me there, and I started working on domestic violence, and I realized very, very rapidly that I couldn't to be able to interviewing the whole topic, the whole picture of the problematic of domestic violence. I couldn't do write just one show. I had to go. The prism of it is so wide that to make something happen on stage or understand or question the whole complexity of it, one show wouldn't be enough, and I had to go through image, through documentary, through interviewing professionals who were fighting against that. And so it happened. I started the cycle of creations that way, thinking, no, I can't. I can't be able to talk about something or question something on stage without going through the whole complexity of it. So that's why we had street performances and film installations and a show and an original text. That's when I started working with living playwrights live. And then that domestic violence cycle, I went straight to gender equality because interviewing, how do you call them, the doctors who actually look at dead bodies? I don't know. Well, anyway.
Okay. Carry on.
Victim professional health, and he told me that domestic violence would be solved by gender equality. So we had a conversation, and I said, "Okay, that's my next show." And it took me 6 years to actually achieve that. And yes, as you said, there was a show, but it was the very end of the process. And first, there was a 3-year research in prison and schools, which ended in a documentary. Of a 1.5 hour documentary, and we had a live exhibition, which I call the 5 spaces, in which I was exploring what we call the 3rd waves of feminism and the history of it, and creating all sorts of different spaces, including a sexist gig. In which I was actually singing as a man, and a show. And now I'm heading towards another one, which will be all about intersectionality, which of course was the topic that came directly to mind when I stopped doing that, exploring gender equality.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
You want to share something?
Yeah, I think it's all to do reflecting on what went through. It's actually, this whole work has helped me become the woman I am today, and my feminisms, I would put them. I would add the plural to feminism.
Yes, I tried that.
Are multiple and inspired by the whole work that is going on in France at the moment. Like in Montpellier, we're 47% of female directors, but we're not as well paid or produced, or you know, our projects don't reflect we're not visible enough. And there's a whole thing going on at the moment in France with the state taking care of that and looking into that, and our own fight amongst ourselves, which is quite visible. And I'll tell you about this maybe a little later. Sorry, my English.
I'll come to those. I'll come to that question, which would be the next one in the series of my dialogue with all of you. I would say that, you know, what you said echoes a lot with our work at the Creative Arts Academy, where with children and adults, we take testimonies, articles, newspaper, magazines, books that we research endlessly about a certain theme or topic, and especially with my women group. So, you know, 1 year of relentless research and reading goes into it, and then we work with a live playwright, you know, who is available at that point of time. And I find it a very you know, satisfying methodology to address an issue that an artist could be concerned about at that point of time, because then you're not bound with one script, but you're digging deeper and deeper and trying to take a whole canvas of you know, opinions or thoughts or feelings or emotions that could be, or facts that could be connected with that point, you know,
Exactly.
or topic. Yeah.
And
So over to,
sorry, no, just to
I'll
add
come back to you, Claire.
last
Yeah.
thing, the show, the actual play, it always comes in the end of the research.
Yes,
Is what I call the golden bit, you know, in the sand thing, sill. It's everything that has emerged from the research that will be shown in the show. That's what I
fully expressed. Yeah. Golden bead in the sand. Tammy, over to you. Your engagement with the gender issues, gender violence, conflict, and trauma has been drawn from your lived experience as much as social conditions. How have you translated your personal experience into your creative projects? Was it your inspiration, or and became your strength, or was it sometimes also a hindrance or a point of weakness during this creative engagement? And tell us something about these amazing creative collaborations that you've done, you know, which are crossing so many art forms. And, you know, it is lovely to have Claire exploring so many mediums in the art to express herself. And you've had collaborations over with so many different kind of artists and mediums.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me to this panel tonight. And yeah, look, interestingly, just adding to what Claire said, that, you know, I think as with such a broad sort of topic, it's very difficult to address it with one form. But also I have found for me, it's very difficult to address it with one or two collaborators. So my work is on a constant search for people or artists, makers, academics, researchers, social workers, advocates that are in the space as a way to create dialogue, share dialogue, my own personal understanding of, what gender violence is in, contemporary society that we live. And I guess, it is personal because I have the lived experience from not only my childhood, but as an adult. And it took me some years to get to a point where I was able to become a voiced advocate. So, there was a project that was probably about 11 years ago when sort of crowdfunding just, was starting to happen. And there was a young woman who had experienced a terrible assault when she was traveling in South America. And she journaled her sort of process of recovery. And I hadn't really witnessed a young woman before come forward with such sort of clarity and capacity and ability to be able to speak to what had happened to them. And it was very powerful, and I was very sort of inspired by that. And it made me reflect on my own experience and how I hadn't really sort of stepped into that space. Like I sort of was doing it in other ways, working sort of inadvertently in mental health and disability and, and with my other sort of art forms, but hadn't really sort of taken a charge or a lead on that. And my first work where I really stepped into that space was in Alice Springs, which is the central desert of Australia. And there was a sort of a jail there that was no longer in use. And I became quite sort of inspired by that space, and it became quite metaphorical. And I did a sort of semi-autobiographical work there called Confined, which explored the relationship of a young woman who had survived incest, but, struggled with the mental health sort of impacts of that, and then, takes their own life. But in taking their own life, thinking that would, sort of be final, but we enter then into this underworld where all of that sort of resurfaces, and that's sort of where the opera starts. So we're in the underworld, and it's sort of set against, sort of archetypes of Greek myth and stuff like that. So that was sort of stepping into that space, and I managed to tour that work to India, and it was in the Rang Mahotsav Festival at the National School of Drama, and it was there that I became aware of the work of, Anuradha Kapoor, and it was at a sort of pivotal time where she was stepping down from the directorship, and I was just really enamored with her and her work around sort of gender and performance. And basically started, a conversation with her that has lasted for about several years, and we developed a work together. And through that process of reciprocity, we've gone backwards and forwards between each other's sort of countries, and we've built a creative team, and that sort of culminated in India, with the support of the High Commission and Hema Singh in, December, January 2019, 2020. And that had an incredible, cast of young women performers from around India, as well as collaborators from around the world, stellar artists from Australia as well, such as Victoria Hunt, who's an amazing choreographer, David Chisholm, composer. We also had sonographer Deepan Shivaraman on the work. But, it was just such a profound experience because we did a residency for a month where we all came together and worked collectively. And what was really interesting about myself and Anuradha, I think, working together was that I've always been sort of and interested in the big extreme sort of, spectrum of the violences that are happening in the world, that sort of womb to tomb, sort of narrative, and the trafficking and the numbers and the fact that it just crosses all societies and all levels of society. Like no one is really sort of touched in that way. But what was really interesting about the lens that Anuradha put to the work was, you know, her interest in that invisible labor of the woman that we all, you know, as women, which you touched on at the beginning, Ramani, about, you know, just the day-to-day, the mothering, the cooking, the cleaning, the rushing, the, you know, if you're sort of in that sort of domestic space as a woman, you know, all of those things, you know. And you know, one of the scenes of the opera was in the trains of Mumbai, where the women chop the vegetables, you know, so they're rushing from one place.
Is that called the Daughters Opera Project?
That's right. Yes.
That's the one.
Yes.
And it has been nominated for India, Australia Business and Communication, right? Business and Communication Award? Yeah,
Community Service Award, which is a
lovely.
great
I'll come back to you, Tammy. I would like to move to Indrani and then have another round with all of you. Indrani, your work has mostly been about community and mental health. Recently, with Manav Utsav, you focused on arts for healing, which also happens to be the theme for Jairangam Festival this year. Tell us about the international research project that you're hoping to work on, which looks at South Asian women and the challenges that they have faced or may face during and post-pandemic. What has been your inspiration to address the South Asian women, particularly pre or post COVID-19? I know that you've been having sleepless night and slogging it out to write this whole project, get research scholars and artists from all over, all of us together to, you know, work on this. So what is the inspiration, or what was your point of departure or takeoff point, and what is the concern that you have over there? Why address this issue particularly?
Thank you very much, Ramanjit. And I think, you know, I'll start by just saying that this has been a wonderful one. You know, it kind of, as you say, that I've been spending this sleepless nights, but when you get this kind of webinar in the morning, which kind of comes from, you know, fundamentally it's driven by interdisciplinarity. So we have been looking into different areas. And I think during this pandemic time, it has become quite important that the complexity that we are encountering at the moment cannot be resolved by one single discipline, you know. And that's where I started my work. So my research background is in digital media and society. But when we started going into lockdown, I saw the kind of, you know, the kind of anxiety within parents when they're dropping off their kids. I heard the conversations around coffee tables when we were meeting with colleagues, and you know, and then something hit me in the sense that we need to find innovative solutions. We can't live in pockets. The pockets that we are living in, of course, you know, it provides us that comfort, but pushing those boundaries and breaking out of that comfort zone is what the pandemic is going to ask for. And we started experimenting with the children to start with. And then, of course, later on, we moved into this Manav Utsav to celebrate the South Asian Heritage Month. But in doing so, I found out, you know, what especially at the beginning, what Leena was saying is that you need to break up the issues, you know, and if you don't break up the issues, you won't possibly able to get through those, you know, conditions that people are living in. And in order to do so, you need to capture the lived experiences of the people. So that's what we started doing. So we kind of tried to open up those conversations. We tried to talk to people and understand what is the problem. And we went into care homes as well, because this is not, this was actually affecting all sorts of people, you know, from different age groups, having different kinds of difficulties, different kind of challenges. And one of the points that actually Claire mentioned that I found in this journey, that creative artists who put an enormous amount of work are very much underpaid. And especially when it comes from, and it's very much of a gendered role, and it's kind of, very much influenced when, if you're a woman artist, you always
Yes.
accept, low paid checks, and it's not acceptable. And this is a kind of conversation. So when I was talking to someone in the UK around art, and she said, well, I said, well, you are actually underselling yourself, can we not go a little bit high? And she said, well, I'm surprised. Why are you saying this? No academic actually
Yeah.
asked to higher the cost, rather they negotiate on the lower down of the cost, And I said, well, this is what we have practiced, and it's hard to break practices. So we need to unlearn some of those understandings to learn something new, to get something new on board. And that's where we started to looking into that, creative arts and performances. And we saw that there is a potential of building community resilience, because sometimes there are stigma around mental health issues, and people won't talk. But as soon as you bring in images, as soon as you talk about film, as soon as you talk about, other kinds of creative forms, people start talking, and then suddenly they can't find interest in what talking out what they have been going through, sharing it, So I thought, well, why not experiment with creative arts and performances to get these people talking, that will kind of release the kind of tension that they have been holding in their in their body, tension and all of it. And then that was actually leading to some physical problems as well. So we tried to address that, what Tammy was saying about the invisible labor. So we started looking into that point, and we started addressing that, okay, who are central here? Running the family is women. Yes, they're taking hell lot of work, and that needs to be again addressed, of course, and we need to kind of look at innovative solutions to how we can empower them. It is more about empowering self-efficacy and to develop that self-efficiency as well. So I think the whole project of community resilience was about empowering different pockets within the society, and the need to promote intercultural dialogues, which is quite important again. Yeah.
Thank you,
And
Indrani. Yes.
and stuff.
Yes. Again, it's very interdisciplinary art forms that we are looking at. So it's very amazing that all of us here are looking at different mediums to express. I will quickly and right away go back to Tammy, because I kind of interrupted her in between, and I would like to start the next round with her. Uh, I completely agree with Indrani, and that's where, Women Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry Arts Leadership Council, and we will be looking into questioning and investigating what is the funding available nationally, internationally, what is the percentage. And I can all of us will kind of agree it's only 5% of the whole huge funding that goes to the women. A lot of strong women disagree with me, but a lot of data was produced and shown to them that whenever it comes to an event which has millions of rupees or dollars or pounds, most of it goes to the men. Then comes the intellectual property rights. The men find it very easy to push it, push the copyright issue forward, whereas women, um, being tender, being involved in so many issues of life, tend to overlook it. And so many times are sidelined, and the rights are not properly looked into, and they do not get the benefit of the tremendous hard work that they may also have put in as artists to produce a art piece. My question to Tammy is, and all of us are from different countries, which makes it very meaningful. Australia, France, UK, and India are represented. Tammy, this beautiful project, the Daughters Opera Project, and the Girls Are Not Toys. I mean, each project, the name itself is so strong, and it immediately catches your attention. That how easy or difficult do you find in Australia, with Australian High Commission coming up with wonderful projects all the time? But what is the scenario? How would you share your experience with us about working with, not only as a woman artist or curator, but also working on gender issues?
Look, yeah, I think it's particularly working in the space that I'm working in, which brings up a lot of stuff for people. You know, everyone has a different sort of experience or perspective. You know, particularly when working with women, you have to be aware of the fact that, you know, when we're sitting in a room, it's often, you know, 1 in 3 or 1 in 5 women have had an experience of some sort of violence, you know. So, and we're all along, you know, different sort of aspects of the path in our ability to be able to verbalize that, or you know, bring forward our thoughts and experiences of that. But it, you know, I think working as a woman in Australia, you know, there's a pay gap, there's a gender pay gap, and I can't remember the actual amount, but that sort of economic non-parity is apparent, and it's across. Then it becomes across a lifetime, you know, because we are often we have to take the time out of the workforce. We don't, you know, get our superannuation. We're not paid during that time, so you know, we end up at a very different place sort of when we come to our mid-career, or even a little bit on the other side of that, in terms of where we are not only with what we've achieved in our career, but also where we are financially, whether we have housing. I mean, the largest increasing demographic of homelessness persons in Australia is women over the age of 50, and that is because, you know, of this disparity that we're talking about that happens because, you know, care, what the invisible labor, the care that happens, you know, is just implied that women will do it. Men won't take the time out of their careers, or, you know, they are often paid, can easily be paid $20,000 to $30,000 more a year than a woman in the same role. So these things start to present themselves. You know, we actually have a housing crisis in Australia, and we have a lot of unaffordable housing. So what we are seeing is that particularly women who end up being divorced and lose, you know, then even more stability and have to start again, aren't able to start again, because then we're faced with discrimination in the workforce because we won't be employed because we're too old. So, you know, it can be grim, and it can look grim. And, you know, I mean, I've been a single parent for many years, and that amplified the situation for me. I was faced with, you know, I wasn't able to rent a house because I was a single income. I mean, that became challenging. Yes. You know, all sorts of barriers present themselves, and you know, it's not something that is going to change anytime soon. It seems, you know, I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I look at what is ahead for her, and I mean, those changes are not happening quick enough or fast enough. The sorts of work I do, Girls Are Not Toys, does look specifically at that kind of financial literacy for young women. Particularly, it works with young women who are either in crisis or are disengaged, you know, in a way in society because of some kind of physical or verbal or emotional harm, and we start to look at how trauma then can also create those impacts, which can, you know, means if we have severe mental health issues, we have to take time out from work for that as well. So, you know, it can be quite confounding, I think, in terms of what it is to be a woman in society and to be faced with the multiplicity of violences that, you know, that, as I see them all as violences, that we have to deal with, you know, when we literally wake up and go to bed at night, you know. So I'm not sure if that answers the question.
True. I'll move to Leena. My next question would be to Leena. Leena, we know that in India, they say that we are working a lot about women's rights and, you know, lifting up the status of the women. And here you are working on such a serious project. there is CSR, there is so-called endless government funding, so many women empowerment projects, and millions of rupees that they say that they are flushing to look at these projects. Uh, how has your experience been about funding gender-based project, which should have just money flowing your way, you know, the way they project it? Yes, you're muted.
I mean, I am a non-profit now, so it makes it easier for me probably to attract money. So it's not just for myself, but that itself has not been easy. We did do a project with the Women and Child Welfare Ministry in the initial days. We did a so my journey as an artist. I've created a work, but I wanted to do something beyond than that. I didn't want
Yeah,
to just do the work for myself. I did this. I realized that I wanted to actually really do some more creative, really meaningful work in
yes.
the
You've been
anti-trafficking
working
space,
on ground.
and a
Yeah,
requirement for public on
yeah,
ground on public
yes,
engagement through creative medium, through interdisciplinary medium. So I want to show
yes.
you all a clip of the game. So I use crowdfunding as my initial go-to. Since then, I have had some really amazing CSR heads who have believed in our project, and so it has taken our project head now. Been 5 years the trust has been. So we have moved from year to year and done a lot of work. But also, we've been known to stretch our one rupee,
Um,
200 rupees, like the kind of work we can put into our budgets is phenomenal. People can't believe the kind of work
always,
we've
yeah.
done for the little we have. Uh, today too, do we have some CSR? It's not there, but I got some amazing interaction with the public. Crowdfunding has been amazing. Kickstarter for a game too. This autumn, I've had this amazing person who heard one of my podcasts on BBC Radio and said, "Hey, I want to dedicate my right to your organization this year." He promised me something like a 3-5 lakh, and he ended up giving me much more. So I get these crazy
Lovely.
amounts sometimes, not too big, but even smaller donations, which kind of take me
Excellent.
ahead in my work. And yeah, but we are driven by what we are saying, right? And we've been really developing a school program. So I want to say my audience, though it is the public, my language has gone now more systematic, like a systematic intervention in schools, because we are talking about creating a new generation who's more conscious about the roles they play as demand makers, about how they can keep themselves safe. And though we were already talking about cyber safety last year under COVID, we've got this whole new punch. And suddenly the national education policy is mentioning cyber safety.
Yes.
NCPCR has a national child protection group. So we've been talking to these people. We've got the father of anti-trafficking in India, Dr. PM Nair, who loves our work, but I'm still not anywhere. I'm still waiting for some big umbrella body
Yeah,
to help us take our work ahead. I would love to show a little glimpse on another interdisciplinary activity I did. I
sure.
actually created a game. So in the initial days when I did a game when I did a crowdfunding, I had done it for an app because in India, the smartphone users are reaching like next level. You've got 800 million smartphone users for 2022. Like that's like
Right.
two populations of two countries probably in Europe. So it gives me such an immense community to reach people right on their phone. So since
So
the
how
first,
long is the clipping?
it's a 30-second clipping. Should I show it?
Yes, please go ahead. And then I will take the questions to Claire and Indrani.
Sure. So I mean, using all these different ways to reach different communities.
We can't see the screen,
Oh,
Leena.
I'm so sorry. I again forgot.
No problem. Can't see it. Yeah,
Sorry.
now it's coming. Now it's coming. Yes. Yes. Now we can see it. Go ahead. Now we see it. The sound is gone now.
It's full, I don't.
Beautiful. I know, these games that you have created are so phenomenal, such amazing, innovative work to reach out.
So they proved to be very powerful.
Mm.
And now it's in 12 Indian languages. So, I mean, they proved to be very powerful mediums. We have incorporated this also in our school program. We've embedded questions in it. We are actually looking at data collection and understanding social behavior in this space. Well, how do children, adolescents make choices? So, adolescents is our key target audience in all our work, and we are really building our language in that space. And because we totally believe a systematic awareness yearly, you can't say I've taught it 1 year, because every year there's a new adolescent, new generation which is striking puberty. You have to address adolescent sexuality today, let alone sex ed. In India, we still don't have sex ed rolled out in schools. I mean, can you
Yeah.
imagine? But beyond that, there has to be even addressing of sexuality today, because there is so much going on online. So we are really getting our language streamlined using interactive mediums, and that's what we've been building and continue. And the funding is scarce and a lot of challenges. And every moment we keep pitching. We literally make 2 pitches a week to different organizations to see
Wow.
where we able to
That's a
strike
lot of
some sort
work.
of interest. Lot of
Well,
work. Each
yes.
proposal is a work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's even though funding is scarce, Leena, but your um, conversation, your sharings do give us hope, that there are people who are out there to help, and that gives a lot of hope to people who are wanting to delve into some challenging issues. I'll move to Claire. Claire, what is the scene in France that you wanted to share about vis-a-vis gender equality? You were talking to me about visibility, that all of us also talk about, the women artists being visible, and also the funding that is available in France. Over to you.
Sure.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Well, just to say that third of my time I use it acting, third directing, third teaching, and on top of that, I'm part of the union, a political party, and some different collective political groups. As you might know, or maybe you don't, France allows stage and cinema artists to be the beneficiaries of a very handy unemployment benefit in case they're not working. And to be able to benefit from it, well, you need to have a quota of declared working hours that will allow you then to benefit from it. So here we do have specific social rights that make things easier for us, though we still have to work quite a lot because the money gets scarcer and scarcer in terms of fundings and subsidies. There is money, but there is a great many of us, and most of the big money goes to the famous people and the big venues. So we have to juggle between official money and more hidden money and get it through different pipes and be clever in how to find it, where it hides. But still, arts in France are pretty well off compared to other countries. On the other hand, private funding here is very difficult to find, even though the state tries to make it happen in reducing taxes if you do participate. But as our state is historically the main funder for arts, the tradition is strong to rely on it in means of cultural events and artistic creation. So there's really very little private money that is actually poured in small and medium projects, except if you happen to have rich friends who will willingly help you, which is not my case anyway. Having said that, let's talk about female quotas in theatre. Let's stick to theatre because it's a big thing here. Our Ministry of Culture is quite aware of the unbalanced figures when it comes to women running theatres and theatre companies and the money they are giving. So you could think that France, having a strong reputation of being a human rights promised land, would be equalitarian in terms of sharing the money between men and women and the means to be able to working properly, decently? Well, no. The statistics don't lie, and though some effort has been made, well, only 34% of the national theatres are run by women, and they usually get the smaller theatres, e.g. less money, e.g. less credibility in national votes, for example. And there is a lot going on at the moment. We are definitely in a fight and strongly claim for equal budgets. Let's say that today, if you come to compare what money was given to a man whose project is in a very way the same as one of a woman's, he will get a third more money in visibility. He will tour more than her. And it's even more flagrant at a high level. Here in Montpellier, as I told you before, there's 47% of female theatre directors, which is a lot. But except for two of them, we struggle more than our male mates. But all of us are quite close and cooperating and finding a way to how we can be part of a sororital movement, helping out each other, keeping hands held, because art and thinking is commonly thought as a man's property. And for some of you who know or heard of the Magdalena Project, 2 encounters took place.
We have Marion coming and speaking to us on the last webinar, so she'll be sharing about the Magdalena Project. Yes.
So we had one last year and 5 years ago, and we plan to do it again and make it happen every other year. The main problems we face as artists and being women is, 1, people tend to think that we will only talk about women. 2, that we will be exposing either tribal or madness issues or autobiographic topics that are non-universal themes because they all rely on care. So care is not a universal theme. That we are most not inclined to speaking of or sharing anything else than ourselves, and that makes us legitimate in the eye of creativity. We are not believed to be full-grown artists as such, and that is a big problem. To set an example, we have the second biggest theatre festival in Montpellier, and looking at the pre-program, we realized 3 years ago, a few of us, there were only 4 women directors programmed in a 27-show festival. Okay? So we wrote a political... Yeah,
please continue.
Yeah, no, I'm finished. So we wrote a political, humoristic letter to the festival director, and that letter was shared through media, signed by over 300 people, among which very famous playwrights and directors, and that had an effect on the next year program. So maybe that's one of the reasons, amongst others, that I have been planning and still am long-term creative work, punctuated with artistic performances so everybody can remember who I am, along with my research work. And by doing that, it allows me to keep on finding the financial means for every part or at every stage. And because I choose to work on a very large, both philosophical and sociological themes, I need the time to experience and let it have a ripple effect on my artistic inspiration. So my way of working has been in a way influenced by everything that I've just said earlier. I have internalized the political blockade, and instead of surrendering to despair, it actually helped me finding and posing my own pace, my own means, accidents to happen that will open up a new way of seeing things I hadn't planned, read a lot. And with those cycle of creations, I think I'm more now working as a visual artist or a sculptor or painter, preparing for a consistent exhibition of her pieces, her work coming all into one place and also allowing me to meeting the right people who will be aware, will follow the work and eventually understand why it is important to give me some money and time and visibility. It's very hardworking, though. You have to say tough.
Well, that was very analytical, and it was important. There's some echo over there, Ankit, if you can look into it. So, an important point that you brought forward, one that, how women are a part of the society and we exist with men and children. And that's the South Asian project that Indrani was looking at, that we cannot ignore men, we cannot ignore children while we're working on and why would we? And how would the project happen if all the segments were not involved? Second is, I have also been closely looking at festival curations and even webinars in this lockdown. And Leena, Indrani, Tammy, let me tell you, I recently saw so many posters all over India and other countries where it was almost all male curation. If it was about training, if it was about artists, if it was about anything, you had suddenly all men splattered all over the posters. So I thought, what happened to the women? Did they disappear during lockdown, or is no one thinking about them? So that make me feel very concerned. And thanks to Deepak ji, and I was also thinking that in this series we will have two webinars which will just be focused on gender issues. And these are the questions, Claire, as you raised the question that you all wrote the letter, that I think all of us need to do, that every time we see this kind of curation, we point it out, we send a letter, we address it. And hopefully we will do it as part of Wiki, and Leena and all of you, I invite you to be a part of it. Indrani, over to you. You are applying for this funding. How much hope do you find? Do you think that they will look at a gender based issue? Because the UKRI project, or the funding that you're looking at, has and you checked it out, has had everything but a gender based issue. So that is one hope, that they may say, oh, we do not have a gender based issue that we have addressed in this funding. But also, are they even bothered? Is that the reason? So, what do you feel about the scenario around there? And then, if there's any other thing that anyone wants to add up, otherwise, we wind up this session and we meet again soon. Indrani, over to
Thank
you.
you. Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think when we are working on research projects or the experiences that other panelists shared here, like Claire, Tammy, and Leena, there are structural inconsistencies, and
Yeah.
it's very difficult to challenge those structural inconsistencies and how they frame, it's not only just gender stereotypes, but it's also subject discipline specific stereotypes that exist. So we're kind of trying to put our hands in a very difficult area. So we need to be conscious of that. Secondly, um, you know, putting this funding together, we had this discussion within the team that um, who is going to be on the panel? Possibly it will be all men sitting in the panel about
I remember that discussion. Yeah.
yeah. And then that yes, we were exploring that. We were kind of having that discussion. But behind the scene, I went in to check, whether there was any funding during the pandemic time allocated specifically for the South Asian community and also for women specifically. And there was none. And I thought, well, there were several bubbles, there were several things.
This
So you
cannot be. Yeah.
but except women, except South Asian, and kind of there are some kind of sort of understanding where it has been framed as a Bain sort of, and I don't quite agree with that Bain terminology, where we say British Asian, no,
Minority.
minority ethnic community, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's possibly very much, again, shows the structural inconsistencies. You cannot put different communities all together, and you cannot actually frame that because you are secluding communities that way. So these are the structural inconsistencies. Now, if you ask me that how much hope you have, well, I say when I write any project, I always have hope with me. Yeah. So it's going to, we will have to put those keywords, those possibly framing of that. But as you see that when we run the Manavutsav, women were quite central to that project.
Yes.
And it was run by women almost. And of course,
Yeah.
I mean, although it was a South Asian project, but I kind of really looked out for people who brings in those creative forms, but at the same time be mindful of bringing in women, quite, portraying them quite centrally. So yeah, I mean, hope-wise, I would say, yeah, we have captured some funding before the Global Research Challenge Fund that we are in at the moment, and
Right.
I will keep on pushing these. Like, it doesn't matter if you get or not get. But Claire was saying there, like, Leena was actually saying there that you can look for crowdfunding. You have several other opportunities, but we should not stop. That's the thing, because when I think about my daughter, again, she's 5 years old, but of course I'm quite concerned about what's going to happen when she's grown up, like Tammy was talking about, the initial discussion. And I believe that whatever I will be doing for the future generations to come, so that they have got few things to work on. And we need to develop these creative tools now, so that maybe in 100 years time there will be a change. So whatever it might take, we have to put our energy into it, and we have to keep this fight going on.
Right. Wonderful. Now, Ankit, if we could all come in a gallery and open it to all of us, and then we wind it up. So, anything that any one of us wants to add to that, because there's so many issues that have been brought out by each one of us. So, Tammy, over to you. I feel that you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to, yeah, I did. I just wanted to talk to the
Yeah,
funding scenario in Australia
yeah,
because I didn't get to sort of speak to that. But look, I think Australia is actually a country that's where the arts has historically been well funded.
yeah,
We're seeing increasing pressure from a very conservative government that's been stripping that away. But, we do have various sources and avenues which go from local to state to federal. And within that is, a very healthy environment where, and it goes across, art
right,
form, which is great. But it's highly competitive. We did see a lot of initiatives happen through COVID, which was stimulus based, and have really kind of re-injected the arts in a way to sort of address what's happened in 2020. And I think what we've seen in the last 20 years in Australia in particular, that Australia, particularly in the theatre industry, there were some reports that were done that really had to address what was happening with the lack of representation of women in particularly the major performing arts arena,
yeah,
like the big, playhouses where women were just
yeah,
not getting their plays on the stage. They weren't directing. So there's been some, really amazing initiatives that have actually really, that change has happened, and now we are seeing more women in those roles.
yeah,
Whether or not they're getting paid the same, that's I don't know the stats on that, but I think there has been progress in Australia, and and we are quite politically active in that way. But in terms of trying to do big scale work like I set out to do as an independent is very difficult because I don't have the infrastructure of an organisation behind me. Your funding is generally capped. The most amount of money you can go for as an individual in Australia is about $50,000, and by some measures that seems like a lot of money, but when you're wanting to work internationally and have multiple artists, you're punching up at $250,000 budget, which would be it's quite normal for opera, but that takes
yeah,
years to get that funding as an independent, and you have to just keep looking strategically, and and part of that is who you collaborate with, because that actually opens doors to other funding as well. So in part, who I work with can often also assist with how I can attract other funds to the
right.
project as
Very,
well.
very practically put forward. And I personally feel that, these are the few questions, methodologies, and as you very rightly said, that who do I collaborate with? I know it's a bit of concern that, what happens to the younger people who are, I feel very proud with this generation of women before us, whether it's Amal Alana or Vijaya Mehta, my own guru, Neelam Man Singh Chaudhary ji, Anuradha Kapoor, Anamika Haksar, Kirti Jain, Maya Krishna Rao. Amazing line of women directors who created a space for women directors in theater. But before that, it was all men. If you look at the whole lineage of the directors of National School of Drama, the percentage would be only 25%. As far as I remember, I could be wrong. I have only seen Kirti Jain and Anuradha Kapoorji as the director of National School of Drama. All the rest of them have been men. So it is not that the women are less talented. A lot of times they are much more talented than their male counterpart, male peer, who ends up having the bigger piece of the meat all the time. So,
Indeed.
there's no we cannot just keep talking about it and saying, hey, this is how it is, and feel morose. But I think we really need to look at some very practical steps of addressing the issue whenever we face it. If it's about curation or creation or funding, we need to look more into the rights, intellectual property rights, the rights towards funding. Why aren't there any rights that have been, like Claire was talking about, or who was talking about, that in the there's a certain percentage, that why isn't a certain funding just, I know I'm not pro reservations, but still we need to create some balance somewhere. And Tammy, as you very rightly pointed out, that we are many many years away from an system of equality in every way. I think it's going to take another 50 or 100 years. So when men say that, hey, aren't you talking? I get those charges a lot of times. You're too feminist all the time. You're talking about women issues. Don't you think you all have talked enough? I said, we're far from talking enough. I mean, for centuries, it has been capped, as you say. We've been kept under caps, locked down, the locked doors, and the fact is that with modern system or times, it's done in even in more subtle manner. They make you feel that they are all pro women, but how much of women are they promoting at home, privately, personally, publicly, funding wise, practically? So I think there's a lot of thought and lot of steps that, I mean, starting from a webinar, which I'm sure millions of people are doing, and yet it is not enough. Starting from seeing that, I don't know how many all women webinars were curated in India during this lockdown. I'm talking about in performing arts. I know all the other areas who've been working, Wiki, all the chapters have been, councils have been working on it, and All Ladies League, many, many women organizations have been. I'm talking about arts. How many arts webinars were all women webinars? Because I can scoop out many which were all men webinars. So taking some small steps like this, 2 questions, yes, please. Up to you.
No, my favorite. Can I speak? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, my favorite one. I think my favorite question is, what do you want again? What is it you want again? Well, we will not stop. I would like to share with you a text that was that I got translated by my mum for the last performance. Who was written by a philosopher. She's a feminist and she's very famous in France. Her name is Geneviève Fraisse, and I can send it to you, Raman, so you can share it with all our friends here. But I will read it to you. Okay, so I think it is okay. You'll see. In the world of the arts, the time has come to make it quite clear, and this is new, that the law of democracy, the rule that it is for all, means for all, women and men alike. The fact is that the idea of for all women is problematic for many men because it implies sharing, in other words, equality across the board. Whereas individual cases of exceptional emancipated women are tolerable, the extension of such equality to include all women falls on deaf ears in a male-dominated society. The prevailing view of democracy is exclusive, not inclusive. The question of art by or for women clearly illustrates the conflict between the singular and the universal, selfhood and anonymity, pain and pleasure. The fact that women should be denied the right to be creative informs the whole issue of oneness versus multiplicity, singularity versus universality. If we are to break down or deregulate this prevailing unwritten rule, we will need to determine at what point an artist becomes a generic being. This will not mean saying who is who, what men do, what women do, what kind of masculinity or femininity is at issue, but specifying the point at which essential questions like pleasure, nudity, the universal self, and life as an artwork, a work in progress, become the crucible of women's emancipation, hence equality. And so I come back to the point of how important it is for the question of democracy. In other words, equality between the sexes, to serve as a benchmark referent, which is different from the realm of politics, because the benchmark is not a question of law, but of invention, not one of justice, but of expression. The terrain of breeding ground is the same, whether we are talking about politics or aesthetics, but what we must ask ourselves is whether the whole point of emancipation, as far as the possible historicity of the sexes is concerned, is not different if the endlessly recurring narrative conveying the message of masculine domination is not more forceful in the social-political sphere than in the social aesthetic sphere. But whether legitimate or subversive, the woman artist embodies the disruption of the prevailing order that is to come.
Right. Very important sharing, and I think that could be the point of departure for all of us from here to the next step that we take towards creating more gender-based issues, and hopefully all of us will collaborate, and we all looking forward to collaborate with each other. I would like to take this moment to thank Jairangam and especially Deepak Geraji, who asked me to curate a few webinars on gender-based issues. And I think, Deepak ji, that was a very important point you raised, and thank you for asking me to do that. I hope it has been meaningful for our audience who has watched. And if you have found this meaningful, then kindly do share it with your friends and family so that we reach out to more and more people and bring these causes forward. I thank you from my heart, Dr. Indrani Lahiri, Claire Engel, Tammy, Leena, for joining us from UK, France, Australia, and India. And I say hello from Kolkata. It's been a very eclectic and wonderful sharing for me. I hope you all enjoyed it too.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and I'm really happy that
Same.
you introduced me to these
Well, the
amazing
collaboration
ladies.
just starts here,
I-
isn't it? It's a wonderful team, really. We need to think about
Absolutely.
it, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd
Yeah,
we'd
we
love to
will.
stay connected. So I'm going to
Please.
send everybody a hi and
Yes.
see how
To find some funding.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, find some funding. We can have some
that will happen. It will happen.
Yes.
I can
Let's
find
do
it
that.
will happen.
My best wishes to thank you so much, and my best wishes to Jairangam. Our next webinar in the please connect to Jairangam YouTube and Facebook pages, the Creative Arts Wiki. You will find information there, and do watch all the plays and wonderful events that are happening at Jairangam. Our second webinar in the series will happen on 12th at 7:30 p.m. India time and 2 p.m. GMT, and that would be, I think, 3 p.m. France, and I'll have to calculate for Australia. So please, I've gone crazy, making these team zones meet, but it has been wonderful by the end of the day. I'm quite happy with the creation. I hope the audience will be too. So thank you so much, and do join us on 14th and all the other webinars. See you at 7:30
Thank you.
p.m. IST on 12 December. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.
See you very
Bye.
soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.